All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Yashodananda Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yashodananda Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Yashodananda Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yashodananda Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Jayam Vishnupāda Paramahamsa Varivarajika Charya Sutta Sutta Srimati Divine Grace H.H Bhakti Marga Swami Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Jayam Vishnupāda Paramahamsa Varivarajika Charya Sutta Sutta Srimati Divine Grace Bhakti Saranda Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Shri Vaishnavrinda Ki
Jai.
Hari Rashtakota Ki Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasri Gauri Bhakta Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunde Giri Govardhan Ki
Jai.
Navandam Ki
Jai.
Navadvip Maipuradam Ki Jai
Jai.
Windsor Yatra Ki
Jai.
Windsor and Detroit Yatra Ki Jai
Jai.
Glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Vastachari Shattarine. Thank Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the wonderful kirtan. Maharaj, please allow me to introduce you for 2 minutes, Maharaj, to the Windsor devotees.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
First of all, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Very good morning to all of you. We are very happy to have with us, and we are very, very fortunate to have with us His Holiness Bhakti Marga Swami Maharaj for a special Bhagavad Gita class today. And thank you all so much for joining. And a brief introduction about Maharaj, since we have sent out the message in email as well as WhatsApp, many of you may have read that. Maharaj, devotees in the early 1970s. In 1973 itself, Maharaj got initiated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada when he was in his early 20s. At that time, Maharaj was studying in Toronto in College of Fine Arts. Maharaj actually appeared from Ontario in Chatham, very close to all of us. Those who are living in Windsor, Chatham is very close, and Maharaj appeared there. And around 20 years, he joined the temple. Maharaj is a well-known monk, sannyasi, spiritual master, guru, and very famous play director, and also widely known as the walking monk. And many of you might have seen the video, the beautiful video which I've sent about Maharaj. And this has been actually featured in National Film Board of Canada. They made a documentary called The Longest Road. So you can actually see that film. And Maharaj took sannyas in 1984. From 1985 to 95, Maharaj was serving as temple president of ISKCON Toronto. Maharaj is also GBC for the whole Canada as well as Cuba. From early 2000, he's been as GBC. GBC is the highest authority in ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And as I was mentioning about, play director, Maharaj has made so many wonderful, deeply inspiring plays. You can go to his YouTube channel, Bhakti Marga Swami. In that, there are so many wonderful plays are listed out, and there are playlists made out. Please watch them too. And his walks, as I was mentioning, are extensively featured internationally in many television shows and radio, newspaper, and also in educational curriculum. And my son, when he was in 5th grade, he said, in class they taught about Maharaj as walking monk. So I was so happy to hear that. So Maharaj is very highly respected and loved by all. And despite his very hectic schedule, Maharaj has agreed to speak to all of us. We are very, very grateful to you, Maharaj, for agreeing to speak with all of us. And we would like to welcome you with very loud Hari Bol. Devotees, you can unmute and say 3 loud Hari Bols to welcome Maharaj. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Thank you so much, Maharaj. Please proceed.
So thank you so much for that nice welcome. And I just wanted to say, yes, I was born in Chatham, Ontario, and I was raised on a farm. First in Tilbury, Ontario. You can see the sign when you're on the 401 going towards Toronto, Tilbury, actually on a farm next to the Thames River in a place called Jennet's Creek. And I used to go to a one-room schoolhouse where we had 30 students in one room, like 8 grades, 30 students, 1 teacher. I don't know how she did it. I used to walk to school every day. It's 1 mile there and 1 mile back. We had SS number 1 Harwich. I think that was the name of the school. And it's still there. It's a red brick schoolhouse, and it's right next to St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church, which is right next to the Thames River. Thank you for this opportunity to get together with you all. And people from Windsor are my, let's say, kind of special people, because I used to go to Devonshire Mall. Most of you may know that place, and I think it's still there. And we have fond memories. We used to also go to the lakes out and Rondo and Peely Island. And, we could swim at the end of May right up until about the end of September, because the water was pretty warm. And we do regular retreats on Peely Island in the summer. If you're interested in that, you can certainly let me know. All right, good. So, Kadamba Kanana Prabhu, you have asked me to speak from chapter 9, text 14. Is that correct?
Yes, Maharaj.
I think it is. So, beautiful. So if you at any point find there's some difficulty technically with my volume or anything, just please let me know. All right. I've got these headphones on just, to make sure that things will go okay. But we are in the material world and anything can go wrong. That's a fact. So we'll start off with Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitanyena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him. Translation to that. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him. Again, the translation. Nama Om Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Shatarini Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Start. Okay, so we'll begin with chapter 9 then. The given shloka or verse for today. And it goes like this. Satatang kirtiyanto mang yatam tascha drida vrata namasyantastamang bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Translation. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. And I imagine it's a regular practice amongst yourselves that we go through the purport. So here it is. The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising his holy name, his eternal form, his transcendental qualities, and his uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmajyoti, is not described as Mahatma in the Bhagavad Gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or a human being. That is devotion. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. And Smaranam, remembering him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas.
Hare Krishna, we request all of you place on mute. Let's hear Maharaj I request all of you to please unmute. Thank you. Sorry, Maharaj.
To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal. Everything. Are we okay? So I'll read that line again. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. And we have two more paragraphs. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Akadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired result. As described in the second verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder or a sannyasi or a brahmachari, in any position and anywhere in the world. He can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. So, thank you very much for listening. And then we'll continue on with a little explanation and what we call purport, which is actually support. Support and purport practically mean the same thing. In other words, the explanation or purport supports what Krishna is saying in the Gita. And in the Gita, actually, we have two main persons that are speaking. It is Krishna, the teacher, and then there's Arjuna, who's the pupil or the student. I would assume that the people in your community there in Windsor, those of you who have children, they're very studious and they like to be educated. So it's important to be educated in the self. Krishna says, of sciences, I am the science of the self. So it's good to probe into yourself a little bit, and because Bhagavad Gita essentially is like a book of not just philosophy, but psychology. It behooves us to take some time to read. This verse is selected, I guess, because, or it is one very important one, because it establishes what is a Mahatma. Everybody knows Mahatma Gandhi. That's a common, coined term, an honorific title, I guess you could say. He did some extraordinary things in the last century, showing that things can be done in a nonviolent way, in a sattvic way. And that way, he's heroic. He was one of the most influential people in the 20th century, I would say. I had the pleasure of being at the Satyagraha in South Africa, the place where he established a farm community. There were 100 acres at the time, which is a little over 100 years ago, and yet there's only 4 acres left that's part of that facility. There's a whole a shanty town surrounding the area. It's not the safest, and I was escorted by 2 police officers, their automobiles, in getting to the place. It's inspirational. They still have some of the initial buildings there, and there are some plaques on the wall quoting the Bhagavad Gita, and there's also mention of the Ramayana. But what really qualifies a Mahatma is what's expressed in the first three words that we have here in text 14. Satatam, which means always. Kirtayanta, which means to glorify. Mang, me. Me doesn't refer to me, Bhakti Marga Swami, or Kadamba Kanana Prabhu or anything. It actually refers to, Mam refers to Krishna. Although in our culture and in our philosophy, we say it's good to spend some time glorifying devotees of the Lord. Now, since I'm not a devotee, I'm rather a demon, so we should never glorify demons, right? So I'm canceled out. But always, keyword, okay, great determination, drida vrata. This is the one that's always bringing people to the attention of Krishna, to the attention of God, the creator, the divine, whatever terminology you want to use. These days, for a lot of people, if you, like I walked across the US and when I was on the East Coast and I met people, I would say, it would be easy for me to say, we are followers of Bhakti Yoga, and we encourage meditation on the divine with a capital D. Once I got to Ohio and into the Midwest, where people are more Christian oriented and they're more familiar with the word God, I could say, we believe in God, okay? Once I got to Nevada, well, actually I walked a little bit through Colorado and then Nevada and then to California, I felt more comfortable saying the word the divine. So the divine or God, it implies the same thing. My intention was to make people feel comfortable. So trying to follow in the footsteps of Mahatmas, we are here to try to make people comfortable as much as can be through the glorification of Krishna. And the key word here is kirtayanta. People who know the Hare Krishna movement are well aware that we're known and famous for chanting Hare Krishna. And this is, in public places all over the world, as well as in our temples. And that's what you're going to find whenever you meet devotees. If we ever got in a spaceship and went to the moon, we would chant kirtan on the moon. If we were to take some kind of a cruiser and go to Africa and go down the Congo River, we will chant Hare Krishna amongst the native folks there. That is our intent. Kirtan is one of the 9 processes of devotional service. When Prahlad, the young boy, who was saintly by birth, was approached by his father and asked the classic question, how did it go in school, son? I think that's what fathers and mothers ask their kids when they come in. How was it at school today? And just like if you've been working all day and you come home and then you meet your spouse, honey, how was it at work today? Okay, so then you answer. So Hiranyakashipu, let's say the bad father of Prahlad, asked his son, how was it today at school? And Prahlad's answer was something like, oh, it didn't go very well. I didn't learn much from my teachers. But I do know one thing. I don't learn much from my teachers, but I learned from somewhere else that there are 9 subjects that we study that's part of our curriculum. Satatam kirtayantamam yatantascha dhridavrita namasyantastamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. So there's hearing, chanting about the glories of Krishna or Vishnu, and then there's a remembrance of him. There's serving at the lotus feet or taking a humble position. There's a form of worship, offering prayers, and becoming a servant of the Lord through practical means. Becoming a friend of the Lord, seeing God as your friend, and then also submitting yourself fully, offering your body, mind, words, intelligence, and resources in the service of the Lord. These are 9 processes that are described, and it all begins with hearing about Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and that is confirmed in the Vedas. Like in the next chapter, we're going to find verses like Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. And what that verse is saying, which is coming from, Arjuna, actually, Krishna's student, he's saying, you are God. And I really accept this, but not only do I believe this, but it's confirmed by other great Mahatmas. Mahatmas like Narada Muni, Vyas, Devala, Asita. These are remarkable teachers who have confirmed the power, the might, and the glory of Krishna. So it is unto Krishna that we worship, and we do that with using names to describe Krishna. So what's so nice about the Bhagavad Gita is that many names are delivered. For instance, Krishna is described as Rishikesh. That means he's the master of not only his senses, but the master of all of our senses, our knowledge acquiring senses, such as the eyes, the nostrils, the tongue, the ears, and the sense of touch. With your touch, you can feel textures and so on. Krishna is addressed as Rishikesh by Arjuna. And Arjuna is addressed by Krishna as Gudakesh, which means you who have conquered over ignorance, you've conquered over sleep. You're an attentive man, you're attentive to your services. And that's what is implied. Krishna's other names are given, Janardhan, for instance, and Mukunda, and Madhava, and so many more, Govinda. These are all names that you'll find in the Bhagavad Gita, and these are all names that have their own definition. Describe God, the divine. Somebody's cutting him off. Names that describe the Lord, his qualities. And so sometimes people ask, well, what is the name of God? And I said, well, there's lots of them. I remember going to a Christian gathering, and this is not to criticize, but it was at the Christmas time, and a group of people from their group came to one of our functions, and so the exchange was we would go to one of their functions. So we had a gathering, and we were singing some hymns. We were looking in the book, and there's reference to the sacred name of God. And after the program was over, I asked, what is the name of God? Because it's referred to in your songs. And the 2 or 3 people that were there that I volleyed the question towards, they said, oh, we don't know the name of God. No one knows the name of God. It's a secret. It's sacred. I said, so, okay. I mean, I just have to, I'm not going to argue with them. But lo and behold, we have here in the Gita much mention of the various names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They all have deep meanings. And so the Mahatma is one who glorifies Krishna through any one of the names mentioned, and does so with determination. Have you ever noticed that even in your own community, some people, they take to Krishna consciousness like fire, they just consume it, and they have such a good time with it, and it comes natural, like second nature. And then there's some other people who are sort of dragging their feet a little bit, and we will not put them down. We will encourage them. It's just the way we are wired. And also it has a little bit to do with our past. I'm going to reference another verse from the Gita. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanva moha nirmukta vajanti mam drida vrita. That word is there again. Determination, focused. having conviction. Determination comes natural to people who have been executing bhakti or devotion in the past, in previous lives, and in this life perhaps, and who have less tendency towards hankering and lamentation. Such persons take to Krishna consciousness with a passion, you know, and it's easy for them, whereas others, it takes them a little time. Just like, we all go at different speeds. If I was to drive from Toronto to Windsor, I take the 401, okay? And then if I want to go a little further, I'll take the Ambassador Bridge or the tunnel underneath, and then I'll get to Jefferson Avenue and I'll go to the temple there or to Farmington Hills, whatever it is. But if on the highway, the 401, I'll find that everyone's going at a different speed. There are some people going at a speed that's just a little too fast, and there's too much rajas, you know. They should follow obey the signs and go at a pace which is recommended. And then there are some people that are just a little bit slow, you know. So you have, when it comes to motorist culture, you have, whether you're going to Motown or the Motor City or not, you have people who are in the rajas, you have some in tamas, which is in the ignorance, and then you have people who are in sattva gun. That means follow, observe the signs, be courteous to other drivers, share the road, etc., etc. Don't think that you're the Speedy Gonzalez, I'm just going to go. Usually people who go too fast, they end up in pieces. No, not in peace, but they end up in pieces, which is kind of sad, and we don't want to talk about that. So when we approach devotion, we can do so in that very sort of nice, calm, cool, and collected frame of mind. And for some people, it's easy. They have this Dridhavrata determination. Those who have less determination, we would recommend that you be in the company of people who have got that sort of, fire. They have that contagion, and so borrow from them. I'm sure they'll be willing to share, and give you some of that special mercy. It's not a problem. I think that's just what most people live on. It's the enthusiasm of others. Let's say if we were to have an arrangement like a business meeting, and we're going to figure out how to make a big profit. So, people will come together and they'll discuss how to do it. There will be a plan laid out. There will be, of course, nobody has to explain why. Everybody just wants to have a lot of money so they can enjoy more, right? That's the objective in the end. And there will be things said, now we have to please our customers. Our customers are the most important commodity. And, and that's always good. That's a very sattvic statement. We have to please our customers. Now, the intent, sometimes business arrangements get a little out of hand, and they're very profit-driven, a little bit too much, so whereby it creates a kind of saturation, or what's the word I want to use? Let's say, too much profit, where it cripples people. So, I remember growing up in the area of Chatham and then Windsor being nearby. The auto industry controlled the world. Like, I would say Detroit and a little less so Windsor. They were the beacon of the world of culture. They were at the epicenter of the world back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and so on like that. And yet that's changed. The world got competitive, and some foreign cars took some prominence and elbowed out some of the more traditional companies that people got very much accustomed to. Inflation is an issue. So even when it comes to making money, I think that we should always tackle business or anything we do with an incredible amount of honesty and try to be sattvic in our approach. At the same time, we have to hustle, And, we can't be too lazy, but we need to set aside some time. We live in a passionate world. Very little time is given to family. And, even now during the pandemic, people are working from home a lot, and they're finding that they're at home too much, and they're just getting on each other's nerves, like, getting into arguments that weren't there before. And, it's kind of unfortunate the way things have turned unfavorably in many ways. Anyways, you could look at it like that. Somebody could say, I have too much of my husband, or I have too much of my wife. But one way we can look at it, hey, here is my partner, life partner. And now I learn how to love through tolerance, through acceptance. It's not an easy thing to do. I was talking to one devotee yesterday, and I said, I am just going crazy. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm in the house all day, in the apartment, and there's no break. And I said, well, why don't you just go for a walk? I said, oh, well, I'm very scared of the cold. He said, well, the cold is not scared of you. Why are you so intimidated? I have a philosophy: if you warm up to the cold will warm up to you. My argument was that there's a lot of good prana in the air, in the atmosphere, and when you come back in after a good walk, even if it's out in the cold, you feel so good, and you'll stay warm. So my advice is go out for that walk, even though the weather might be a little bit interesting, and come back feeling so much more energized. And then you come back, appreciate the people that you live with more. So, getting back to some of the key words here, upasate means to worship. Worship is something that everyone does in this world, even the secular capitalistic world. People give a lot of attention to materialistic interests. Let's go back to the idea of the car. Okay, people, they go to these car shows, and or they'll have like vintage cars, and they're all souped up, automobiles, and people go, oh, they gawk, and they almost drool, like drool is coming out of their mouth, like. And I look at that, oh, it's just a piece of metal. And these days it's not even metal, it's just plastic, and it's some rubber, and if you hit somebody, the whole thing, your automobile will practically be totaled in no time. So people are a little bit misplaced in their interest, and so but by their gazing, and I appreciate people who maintain their vehicles nicely, but it gets almost to the point of ridiculousness. They're practically worshiping the automobile. When you watch TV or something like that, a lot of the commercials are based on the automobile, and there's a lot of money spent on these automobile, whatever they're trying to sell. It's the automobile itself or parts of the automobile. And, there's, this amazing amount of really good sound effects you'll find in there, and, upbeat music that gets everyone excited in Rajagun, what we call passion, and people are bought into it, and they're sold on the concept. Yes, my life will be successful if I have a nice souped up car. People will notice me. I was raised in that area where cars were manufactured, and I never was interested in cars. I was much more interested in people and rivers and trees and so on like that. If you ask the average person, what kind of a model is that? And they'll know right like that. So what kind of a tree is that? I don't know. Well, you don't know your trees? These trees go all around you. They give us so much beauty. They give us so much energy. They exude oxygen. Many of the trees smell wonderful. If they're hardwood trees, the leaves they fertilize it. And the ones that are softwood, they offer amazing fragrance. And if you can make teas out of them, and boil the water, put them in there, and just put a little maple syrup. I'm putting a little Canadian, plug in. Maple syrup in the water, you'll end up with a real nice tea that provides you some, really incredible energized vitamin C. So, we are a little bit, our interests are a little bit misplaced, and we have to put a little attention to the soul, the Atma, and the body must be acknowledged, and we need to take care of it. When it's ill, we must, try to go for some kind of remedy. And Prabhupada was talking about being very practical, and he said, when it rains out, use an umbrella. Okay, but we must not neglect the needs of the soul, and the soul becomes. Happiness is triggered, as it's expressed in the purport here. There's a happy mood, like susukam kartum avyayam from chapter 9. In this chapter, the Lord is talking about pleasure comes from executing this bhakti, susukam kartum avyayam. Happiness, and everybody wants that. Everybody wants that state. But it's an inner happiness. It's not an external happiness. Exterior gratification is short-lived. It doesn't last very long. It is just kind of a disappointment. Physical stimulation has a short shelf life. It doesn't go for very long. Hence, the pleasures that we get physically are, let's say, shallow. They're very shallow. It doesn't go very deep. And we are encouraged to go deep in our spiritual life if we want to be successful as human beings. We must go deep. And the depth comes from hearing from great souls, sadhus, gurus, and shastra. There are three references for us: guru, sadhu, and shastra. We had a nice discussion this morning in our class here in Toronto. We were talking about the guru delivers, and I put up my hand to the person who was giving the class and saying, well, what about gurus plural? Doesn't our spiritual development depend upon the help of many people? Just like, say, for instance, there's that African proverb, it takes a village to raise the child. So it's not just always one person. It's not even Krishna who stands alone and says, if you give your full attention to me, then you will get moksha, you'll get liberated. No, he's actually saying, follow my system. So you have a guru, and then when you discuss guru, what that means, there's multiple gurus in our lives, people that help us. And Prabhupada has established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That means a community or a culture. Let's say, when you look at the word community, common unity, where people are united in a common way, on a common ground. So with that, we can say that it takes each and every one of us to help each other in our Krishna consciousness. Let's go back to the example of honey. How was it today at school, or how was it at work? And maybe it's said sarcastically and didn't really mean it, or maybe that even that nice gesture isn't always expressed. Okay, so if you have someone in the house that you don't get along with too well, still try to get along and realize that I'm going to learn patience here. And the patience, when applied, brings me to the point of love in the end. I mean, after all, it's Krishna who throws these curveballs, and he's giving, here's cold weather, now here's hot weather, here's a strong wind, here's like a thunderstorm, see how you like it. And Krishna's just giving us these marvelous tests that where we learn tolerance and titikshasva, which is mentioned in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One must learn to tolerate the reverses or the dualities in order to make spiritual advancement. And matra sparashastu kaunteya, I'm going to jazz it up. Matra sparashastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkha da, agama pahano nitjas, tam statikshasva bharata. Yeah, Okay, so that is jazzy. And Krishna's a jazz master. After all, he spent a few minutes singing a song called the Gita. And it's catchy. The shlokas are catchy. And this one is really kind of, it's right in the middle of the Gita. So somehow it has, it's in a position of importance. And so from chapter 2, Krishna is saying that winter and summer seasons come, they arise, and one must learn to tolerate them. Happy conditions, sad conditions come. Like like in America, everyone is watching the politics, at least to some degree, and America had become very polarized by the previous engagement. And it depends on who you talk to. Some people are passionately for this guy, and some are passionate for the other guy. So some people are going to be saddened by the new president, and some people are quite happy about it. They're elated. And that's just the way the world is. You're never going to satisfy all of the people all of the time. Back in 1976, I was on a morning walk with Prabhupada on Lake Michigan at a park. And it was just not me alone. There were other people there, some sannyasis, and I was just a humble brahmachari. Vishaka was there with their camera. And we were walking the length of the park, and we came to the end of it. And then it was decided that this would be a good spot to take a picture of Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada stood there, and Brahmananda Swami, who was there, he decided to reposition Prabhupada a little bit and was fussing a little bit with the folds in his chadar, the shawl. And then another devotee came and did something else, some little pulling on the sleeve. And then Vishaka, who was the photographer, she was just suggesting a little turn slightly, a little this way. And then it kind of went on for a long time. And Prabhupada just said, I'm standing like this. You cannot satisfy all of the people all of the time. So he had a big grin on his face, a big smile. And so that was that little story. And so that is a fact. You cannot satisfy everybody all of the time. But we are bent to focus to try to please Krishna as much as possible. How do you know that he's pleased? Well, try to give him what he wants, what he asks for. Patram pushpam palam toyam yomi bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti paritam ashnami prayatatmanaha. Krishna says, offer to me with love and devotion a leaf, flower, fruit, or water. He itemizes what he likes. But the main ingredient is love. It's love. It's love. And this is what Krishna consciousness is all about. What it is all about. It's about demonstration of love, of kindness, of serving, and expressing one's gratitude. The attitude of gratitude must be expressed, and then one can be successful on the spiritual journey. So this verse and the accompanying verses, like the one that you may have looked at last time, I'm not sure if you're doing this in sequence, but Mahatma is addressed. A Mahatma is a person who is not under the grip of Maya. Diving prakritim ashrita, but is under the protection of Yoga Maya, Krishna's divine energy. They are engaged in devotional service and the glorification of Krishna, bhajanti ananya manasa. Again, using the bhajanti means service. In other places, Prabhupada talks about worship. But it indicates that a true yogi is one who is involved in service, personal service, because after all, this is all about personalism. See God as a person, as someone who has desires and has some preferences. So that is Krishna. That is devotional service, approaching the universe in a personalistic way. You'll see that in Prabhupada's literature and publications that he takes a lot of stabs at Advaitin philosophy or Mayavad philosophy. he's not favorable to the notion of appreciating that there's an energy, a divine energy, but there's no person behind it. The 14th verse of the Sri Upanishad expresses that the devotee is reciting this shloka. He's saying, "My Lord, please remove your Brahmajyoti, remove your light so that I can see you." Actually, I'm sitting in a window. There's so much light coming in right now. I think we're going to have I'm doing some sunbathing here. It's very strong. It's very strong, and I must admit I don't mind it right now. But let's say we have our strong sunny days, even in Canada. People, when I travel around, they say, "Oh, you're from Canada. It's very cold there. It's also hot there." We have lots of dualities, and the people are nice. I have to defend myself a little bit. It's a nice place. We have fair politicians most of the time. And people have moderate living standards, and we have a good medical system, etc., etc. So I always have to defend. I must admit, I'm a patriotic monk. I'm a patriotic Swamiji, and that's why I walked across Canada 4 times, and then I couldn't leave out America. I had to walk the U.S., and I was happy to. Starting from the 50th anniversary of when Prabhupada came. And then I followed through 2 more seasons after that, and went from starting from Boston and going to California. And it was great. It was wonderful. Only once were people coming around with guns and, suggesting that very strongly get out of town. And well, I did, but I was going to take my time. I was not going to be intimidated. Yeah. So when doing these long walks, it's a lot about chanting and spending hours on the mala japa beads, 2 or 3 hours, and then after that I'll sing some songs. I'll do the bhajans that Prabhupada has taught us, and I'll do it loud if there's nobody around, and I'll sing to the bears, I'll sing to the deer. It doesn't matter. I think they like it. I'll sing to the birds. I'll try to outdo them. So whether we're out in the countryside, in the out of doors, or inside, we can commit ourselves to singing, and singing the praises of Krishna, as Prahlad always did when he was harassed by Rakshasas, because his father was, as we expressed, not a nice man. Prahlad Maharaj took shelter of chanting, and he did so with gusto. And so that's what we try to do when we chant Hare Krishna. Not always the easiest thing. I know it's expressed in this purport that devotional service is easy. Yeah, basically it is. But then, we have the mandate to try to control the mind, which is one of the most difficult things to do on this planet Earth. As Arjuna says, I think I can control the wind, but I can't control the mind. And Krishna acknowledged it. He said, yeah, that's true. But with constant practice in devotion and in the spirit of detachment, you can be successful. So just apply Dhrida Prata, determination. Good. So we're at a point where we're 5 minutes to where the clock strikes. And I think I should just be quiet right now and see if any of our listeners have anything that they wish to say, questions or comments, or, and if there aren't any, then one day maybe we can all go together and have a walk down along the Thames River, the place where I grew up. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much for the wonderful talk. And devotees, if you have any questions, this is an opportunity for us to talk to Maharaj. Please unmute yourself and you can ask questions.
Can I speak? Swamiji, very nice listening to what you just said. 2 things hit me very nicely. I want you to speak a little bit more. One of them is this pandemic has brought a lot of change people are staying too long together. You mentioned that
Yes.
you learn to accommodate. And so one of the things I have is before we know it, there'll be another change. People will be complaining they're not seeing their husband too much. So what do you recommend to get this mind? You mentioned about nurturing the soul. Can you expand on that, please? Thank you.
Yes, what you say very much is true, that people are never satisfied. And that's why Prabhupada said you can never satisfy all of the people all of the time. So either you're too close to people or you're too distant from everyone. And so it's a fact. There's always going to be complaints. People will be whining all the time. And that's a common feature. My dad used to work at a factory at the International Harvester in Chatham. And he used to come home feeling a little bit drained because everybody's always complaining on the work site, and he used to complain about everybody else complaining. It seems like people don't love their work. Work translates into, let's say enjoyment, because you are earning something, and then that translates into having some fun, or at least existing, surviving. But people don't go very deep in their thoughts. So I think we have to make a more clear analysis of things, and switch from complaining to happy with what you have. And instead of thinking of work as work, work should be play. See it as play. This is what's helping my family. This is what's sustaining me. So I think we need to go deeper. And I think that's what the Bhagavad Gita calls for. Krishna is telling Arjuna, we have to go deep, Arjuna. You think you're going deep. You think you have concern for your family, friends, the elderly people, and so on like that. But I think you have to go deeper. You're mourning for what is not worthy of grief. So we have to make that adjustment. Our attitude has to be very optimistic and not pejorative, because all saints are optimists. All saints are optimists. Prabhupada was like that. He was very upbeat. There's only two ways to be in this world: upbeat or beat up. That's all. It's very clear cut. There's a line between the two. And so we can dwell on what's negative, but if you dwell on what's positive, you'll become more productive. You'll be a happier person. People are happy to have you around. But if we always dwell on that which didn't work out, then you're just a miserable individual and nobody wants you around. So I think that let's just come to a conclusion that the pandemic has forced us to make some adjustments. And when it's all over, and it will be over, then people will complain about something else. And we live in the world of Marchiloka, place of death, or less a place of complaints. Okay. But with all these challenges, Krishna is just helping us to be a better man or a better woman, helping us to be a better human. And we should see it like that and not see it as a heavy challenge that I can't overcome. So I think sometimes we have to be a little creative and come up with ways and means to pass the time in a more happy spirit. I was talking to that person about, well, get out. You don't like being inside, then go outside. Go outside and just dress for the occasion. Nobody's telling you to stay indoors. You can go outdoor and keep your distance, social distancing. People have been social distancing from God since time immemorial. So it's not a new thing, social distancing. We've been doing with God forever. So just put it into practice. I don't know if that answers your question, Ashok, fully.
Very, very well. Thank you, Swamiji.
It's simply a matter of, see what you have. Like I'm looking at your apartment. I'm looking at your wonderful wife over there in the back, and I'm seeing your pictures, and you've got, like places to sit down. You've got a carpeted floor and everything. And you've got it made. You go around the world and you see people just don't have that, not even the basics. They're struggling to stay alive. So, let's count the blessings. Yep. Count your blessings. And you'll see that the number far outweighs the negative things in your life. So when you walk through the forest somewhere, you say, oh, there's all these weeds here. But if you know that those weeds are actually herbs that are like medicine, then you'll have a different attitude. Most people just look at weeds when they walk. Oh, these dandelions. But if you know dandelion root and even the leaves are some of the best things that you can put in your body. I know how to make pakoras from dandelion flowers. They are so good. So in the month of May, you folks who are there in Windsor, Detroit, pick some, wash them, put them in a little batter, deep fry them, and you'll be amazed how good they are. So instead of just saying these are a nuisance, they're let's say controlling my yard, you know, they're just taking over. It's like a epidemic. You know, well, see that they have something to offer. It's food. It's food. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so
Hare
much for
Krishna.
taking the time for giving such a wonderful class. There's a question that's been on my mind for quite some time. If someone's just at the beginning of their spiritual journey, but they're too comfortable with the lifestyle that they currently have and are not fully ready to give it up, even though they may know that what they're doing is not Krishna consciously correct, then how can they gather the will to change things up? Not just like in spiritual journey, in just daily life, we notice that if there's a bad habit, it's really hard to give it up and pick up a new one that's good for you.
It's true. I'm just going to move so I get a little out of the sun. I've had enough sunbathing now. My tan is good enough now. Okay, so they have a saying that it's easy to get into bed, it's hard to get out. Okay, so when you get in sort of like habits, we have to be very convinced that it's important that you know, I make that change. That then the will grow. Just like, say, for instance, a lot of people are concerned about their weight, and most people in North Americans are the weightiest people. You know, we have abundance, and we eat well, and we exercise less, and so on like that. So we don't like those extra pounds or karma that we're carrying around. So a lot of people go and there's different approaches how to deal with it. But if someone's really determined to reduce some of that karma, they will succeed. It's just you have to convince yourself it's important for me to do that. And the way to also achieve it is, again, go and associate with some of those people who are determined in their Krishna consciousness. Get their association, get their sangha, you know, and then things will change. You just have to get closer to them. Stay 6 feet apart. But when I say get closer, you know, hear from them, learn from them, pick up their vibrations. There's something beautiful about the what Krishna has given, invested in them. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the greatest of bhakti yogis, said that sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koi. He said that, you know, get that good company, get that good association, and that can make a difference. So your will be enhanced when you're in that kind of company. You know? So that person will help you. Just like if we're trying to reduce weight or any bad habits, you know, if somebody's drinking chronically and know it's a problem, they'll have to get help from Alcoholics Anonymous or something. Go with the people who will help. I made friends with a person who walked across Canada. His name is Michael Osh. He's the one that actually did that little film, The Walking Monk. And he walked across Canada. Why? Because things were falling apart. 9/11 happened. Things were not going good in his relationship with his wife. He was getting into drinking in a heavy way. And then he said, I have to make some changes. I just have to. So with his strong will, he wanted to improve. He wanted to be a better person. So I'm going to walk across the country. And after he did that, he became a counselor for people who have alcoholic issues and so on like that. He came he came out a better person, and he felt compassion for those who needed that little bit of extra push. So we have to push ourselves, and we have to ask other people, can you push me a little bit? If you call it a love shove, then it doesn't hurt so much. It's less painful. Give me a love shove. Excite me about Krishna consciousness. So I think that's the key thing. Getting help from those who are excited when we are not so excited.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Does that help?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maharaj, may I ask a question? This is Sarthak here.
Sarthak, oh my God, all the way from Toronto. Oh my God.
Hare Krishna, all glories to you. Dandavat Pranam. So it's not a question, but I just like the way you described how you used a different term for God, right from East Coast to the West Coast, depending on the people, depending on what they are more aligned with. And I think that is the way to somewhere maybe activate or reignite that spark in people or their lost connection with God, to start by talking about what they're really comfortable saying. So if there is an impersonalist or somebody who does not believe that God can have a personality, we can at least start by saying the divine energy or the superior energy or something like that, and slowly bring him to the personal concept. I think I really loved that point of yours.
Well, what I would like to say is that for some people, the word God is a very negative terminology. And God implies the person who's killing us, the person whose followers create wars. God took away my life partner, etc., etc. And so-called godly people were involved in all kinds of abusive things. Not only did they create war, but in some traditions they abuse children, women, and other people. And so they have a bad taste. That word God doesn't fit with them, and so they prefer to maybe not believe in God. They're like agnostic, and that's okay, as long as they're sattvic. As long as they're sattvic, when you're sattvic in the mode of goodness, then you have a chance to believe in the personality of Godhead. Yeah. So the point that I was making is that we should be adjustable. Just like the pandemic. Hey, adjust. And when it's all over, adjust again. Be ready. That's what life is all about. Yeah. I mean, I just moved my chair a few times while I was here the last hour. I had to adjust because the sun is chasing after me. It was just too intense. So I must adjust. Must adjust. Right? Just looking at things poetically. Must adjust.
Very true. Maharaj, is this the very reason why Prabhupada was insistent on naming the society as International Society for Krishna Consciousness and not God Consciousness? Because I did read something that suggested.
Prabhupada had a very strong mandate. He was very, let's say, concerned about establishing God as a person. And yeah, that for a large extent it was. Someone had suggested, why don't you call it International Society for God Consciousness? And now I'm glad that it didn't stay with the word God, because that would turn off a lot of people. Krishna consciousness. And to this point, Krishna has a good rapport. He has a good rap with people, good reputation. People can find fault with him, and they have, and they will. But in general, Krishna's a cool dude. And if we who are his followers behave properly, people will get a good experience from Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions at all? Well, it looks like everyone's become an impersonalist and they just want to sit down and be silent. I'm just joking. So, but anyways, yes.
Sorry, Maharaj. Maharaj, if you have 2 more minutes, Maharaj, I can ask devotees to turn on their video if they like to come forward and say Hare Krishna to Maharaj. This is an opportunity for us. If anyone would like to come forward? You can turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. We really enjoyed the lecture. Very different and new perspective. It was very energizing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I only heard a voice. I don't know who is talking.
Okay, I'm just cooking, but we can, sorry, just
Oh, that's too bad.
doing my karma along with listening to a beautiful discourse. So thank you so much. My name is Gauri.
Gauri,
and I
yes.
worked in Chatham for about 8 years. So
No
I'm
kidding.
aware where it is. But thank you so much for your time.
Have you gone to the Indian restaurant there in Chatham?
Maharaj, I make really good Indian food. So we don't go to we don't go to Indian restaurants.
I feel so bad that you know, you're cooking right now and we can't take the remnants. This is so torturous. But because of the restrictions.
Thank you again for your time, and we greatly appreciate you and Raji for organizing this. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate very much your community, and I'm hoping physically we can come down and see you all sometime. I might walk there and on the highway too. Yeah, we'll have to do it sometime later in the year. Yeah, we'd love to see you all. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
And yeah, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Glorious to Srila Prabhupada anytime. And I'll be leaving.
Anyone else would like to speak to Maharaj?
Say Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Maharaj is left.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing the link with me and allowing me to be a part of this lecture today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for helping me in coordination. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu, for arranging this.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your discourse and your time.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much.
Okay, bye.
We look forward to seeing you all next week. And we will continue with our Bhagavad Gita reading on the weekdays from 9 o'clock for 15 minutes, which we do it every day during the weekdays from Monday through Friday. As usual, we'll have our Saturday class at 11 o'clock next week. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.